Hello, economics learners. I'm back again with another video. So this is a business cycle video, uh, mainly for grade 12s, but this information can still be relevant for grade 11s and grade 10s. Now, let's start with this business cycle that we have here. Now, what is a business cycle? A business cycle is a successive periods of increasing and decreasing economic activities. So these economic activities will go from one point, increase, increase, and decrease. So we have something that we call, let's say the economy is in prosperity, going up. When the business cycle is in the prosperity phase, businesses and consumers have gained confidence in the economy, and a sustainable increase in production process is evident. So, meaning that the economy is working in its full capacity. Firms are working, production houses are expanding even more. People are employed, so a lot of people have money to purchase products which are produced by the businesses. Employment levels are at highest. Wages and salaries rise and spending increases. So there are a lot of people who are opening businesses, paying salaries, and people are more employed. So in the prosperity phase, the economy is doing exceptionally well. The demands for goods and services rise. People have money, so people want to spend this money. So because people have so much money and they want to spend, now prosperity will go at its highest when at the peak. It's when now the prosperity is on its highest. Like, it's even like a person who is not employed doesn't want to work, the way there's so much happening in the economy, and the economy is doing so well that less people are suffering. So the economy is working, businesses are fully employing people. Now we reach a point where we are at the peak of prosperity, right? So the high demands of goods and services will cause a rise in inflation. People have so much money that sometimes businesses cannot keep up with producing for the amount of demand in the market. People demanding products. So the business cannot meet up to demand. What happens is that, and they are buying a lot of houses, right? So the South African Reserve Bank borrows money to all these other banks that your Absa, your Capitec, and your FNB and so forth. Ne? So because a lot of people are buying houses, and buying houses are so cheap, the Reserve Bank will increase the repo rate, right? The repo rate is the interest in which bank borrow money from the South African Reserve Bank. And also that will cause an increase in inflation. So too much demand or a prosperity phase in the economy pushes for inflation to happen. So inflation has happened. When the inflation has happened, now people start to spend more, right? They start to spend less, because now the products which were cheaper, they were able to afford, are now becoming expensive, and which means the economy is going down from its highest point into recession. Now the economy is in recession. In recession is that a negative economic growth for at least two successive quarters occurs immediately after the peak. So we have peak, and then inflation sparks. Prices go very high because sometimes suppliers are not, or producers are not able to keep up with the demand in the market. People want so much of these goods that they're even failing to produce. So the prices go up. And when prices go up, it means inflation. So inflation will get us into what we call a recession. In recession, a negative economic growth for at least two consecutive quarters. Let's say from January, the economists have figured out or picked up a trend that from January to March and from March to June, consumers are now reluctant to buy. So they are no longer buying as they used to in the previous year. So we're saying we are now entering a recession. Prices have gone up, and now people are only spending on necessities and not on luxuries. So the high prices hike of goods and services discourage consumers to buy. So the demand for products goes down in the recession phase because of high costs. Production output will decline. So the amount of output which was produced during prosperity now starts to decline because uh, consumers are not buying as they did before. The demand for credit due to increased interest rates will also fall. So people will not be borrowing more from the bank and buying houses. And unemployment rate rise due to retrenchment. Now, the firms which were fully employed at full capacity, they had everybody working, and even part-time workers now have to retrench because they cannot produce as much as people are not buying as they used to. Now, this bad economic state continues. As it continues, we will enter into a phase called depression. Depression is the pits. When we say the pits, it's bad. It has gone from bad to now worse. Depression is worse. It's continuous increase in the production output. Like people are just producers are just starting to produce less and less because consumers are not interested. It has a negative impact on investment spendings. Businesses are not able to expand because really, who are going to buy? Because people lost their jobs. People who have kept their jobs are only spending money on necessities. So they're even taking out their savings just to pay for necessities, no longer holidays. Unemployment rate is extremely high. Most businesses become bankrupt and downscale or close. A drastic decline in luxury consumer goods and services. I think this is what happened after the COVID-19, after the lockdown. Immediately after lockdown, the businesses were doing bad because there was so much uncertainty. People didn't know, and businesses had to go on shutdown, and they had to retrench a lot of people. So I think after the COVID-19, we're probably in depression phase in South Africa, and this is trough. Trough is the lowest point in the business cycle where it's very, very bad. Now, recession and depression is called the contraction phase. When the economy is facing recession and depression, we're saying the economy is in contraction. When a woman's about to give birth, she has pains, labor pains, which are contractions. So it means it's so bad, so bad for the economy that the economists call it a contraction phase. Okay, now from the contraction phase. So just know that recession plus depression equals to contraction. And it's a period. Remember, in the business cycle, we have phases, right? And we have periods. So when it's a period of contraction, it means we are going from recession to depression. So these two are just in the contraction phase. So we can say contraction, a period that consists of both recession and the depression phase. It is a downswing from peak to trough. It shows a rapid decrease in the production activity in the economy. There is a decline in employment and a decrease in the gross domestic product. Yes, we have went through all these bad economic periods, which I have just explained. And now the government says, hey, the economy is doing so bad. Let's increase government spending and maybe spend more on projects, roads, constructing roads, and so on, so that people can just be employed. Let's subsidize more firms or fund groups which wants to start production so that we can stimulate the activity, the economy back to where everything is fine and good, where not a lot of people are now depending on grants. So that will be the recovery phase. In the recovery phase, also the Reserve Bank decides to decrease the repo rate, and inflation also goes down because of this, right? And then we in the recovery phase, it is an improvement there is improvement in economic activities that occurs immediately after the trough. An increase in production output occurs and unemployment decreases as consumer gain confidence in economic growth. So the increased employment leads to a rise in income. A lot of people can now spend. And then from recovery, we'll enter again what we know as prosperity, the one that we did here. From prosperity, we will go into the peak, and from peak, we go to recession, depression, just like that. It's a continuous cycle. So the recovery and prosperity phase, it's called the expansion period. In this phases, when there's recovery and prosperity, we call this expansion period. A period which consists of recovery and prosperity phase. So expansion is equals to recovery plus prosperity, right? It is upswing in economic activity from trough to peak. Expansion is upward, sustained growth in the economic activity that leads to an increase in gross domestic product. A lot is being produced, so GDP also increases. During this period, the economy experiences sustained growth. This line here, it's called the trend line.